Hey, it's Alchemist.camp, where we level up as Elixir programmers by building things. And the thing we are going to build on today is a project called StatWatch. This is not a new project. I've actually done several videos building it up from a purely back-end web service. And yes, those are fireworks in the background because it's Chinese New Year. Happy Year of the Dog, everybody. Building it up from a web service that would just go out daily and log stats of how many YouTube followers a profile had, how many video views it had, the Alexa rank of a web page, number of Twitter followers someone had, basically just using free APIs. And I made it to track my own social media profiles. And that's why it's these three and doesn't include, say, Instagram, because I'm not on Instagram. All right, so today what we're going to do doesn't rely on anything we've done before. Today we're going to make three major changes. First is we're going to change it so that the URLs of the profiles are names, or slugs as some people call them, instead of IDs. So instead of going to statwatch.me/profiles/12, you would go to /profiles/Alchemist, or whatever you decided to name your profile. And the second thing is we're going to be adding an admin authentication system that makes it really easy to just restrict whole routes to admin only. And then third thing we're going to do is style it. What you see now is how it's going to look when we're done, and what it looks like when we start is basically just like the default Phoenix install. So that's enough preamble. Let's get to it. And this is actually pretty straightforward. We'll just go to core. So you can see here, we've got this get profile by ID function, and then we have an analogous one that gets it by name and gets the exact same profile, just a different method to access it. Same thing with delete. We have a delete profile and a delete profile by name. All we really need to do in order to make it so that our profiles are accessed by name from the end user's point of view is update the controller to use these by name methods, and then update each of the links to a profile to use profile.name so that the link is passing the correct thing into the controllers. And we're just going to leave the router the same. I'm going to show that quickly though. We have a resources line for profiles here, and that's what's setting the ID parameter and doing everything else. We're going to leave that here for convenience, but basically any ID that comes in on these paths is going to be treated like a name. So we'll go to the profile controller, and for create, let's see, no change here. For show, instead of getting the profile, we're going to get profile by name, and we're actually going to call this name just so that it makes sense in the controller at least. We're going to get profile by name. Then we need to do the same thing for edit. Name. By name. Then we need to do the same thing in update. And redirect to profile path. We're going to show profile dot name. Did we have a redirect up here? We did. We're going to show profile.name. In fact, we're just going to search for this phrase throughout the file. Then in delete, same deal. And we're going to get profile by name here as well. And then the actual delete is going to be by name as well. Does it have an exclamation point? Let's better check that. It does have an exclamation point. All right. Redirect to the index, that's fine. Then in here, this is also going to be a name. We're still going to compare the profile's user ID to current.id, no change there. This is going to be by name. Path stays the same. And that should be everything. So let's save it and have a look. I'll refresh this page, which should no longer lead to a good path. So yeah, we don't have a profile like that. And if we look for Alchemist, we do have this one. All profiles, that's good. Is that path still good? That path is not still good because those were in our index page. So we're basically gonna have to do that same replacement anywhere in the whole app where we're showing a profile. Is this profile? This is. So let's search for the entire app for this string. Do Control-Shift-F, does a multi-file search in Visual Studio Code. And we've got 3. So in here, get that one, and we're just going to replace them all. Oh, that one's fine. That one's fine. Oh, this is the last one. Okay. Change that to .name. Save that, and then all of these edits. Search for edit. Only got one. Okay. And how about delete? Only got one. Okay, so we'll just update these manually and then we're good. So we can edit. We cannot update. It's because we passed 1 to the update, all right? ID, map, new profile. Params, get it by name. Name is 1. That's fine. Edit, that's fine. So this problem is going to be in our form. But it's not in the form itself. So let's go to the file view. It's going to be in the things that use the form. So it's going to be the new and the edit. New, we have profile path, create. How about an edit? That's what we just used. Profile. This profile should be profile dot name, so we get the right path. Is there anything on the show? Yep. That's got to be name as well. Index we already checked. Okay, should be good. Let's try again. So that's no result. That's as it should be. We have the wrong URL there, so we're going to refresh it. Now we'll submit. We have the right URL. Profiles under Alchemist. That's good. Go to all profiles. It's listed there. Yep. We'll delete this one. So we passed it a 1 instead of passing it. Oh, we did pass it that ID. That's good. Name, get by, profile, name. So yeah, it looks like we're doing the same logic twice. We're passing in a name. We're getting a profile by name. And then this is actually already a profile. And then we're trying to delete by name, passing it the whole profile. So instead of that, we'll get rid of this function. And we'll just delete by name, passing it the name, and we should be good. Refresh this, and delete. Excellent. So we can delete by name. We can create. We can show. We can edit. All right. So this is working fine as intended. Now let's make these profile views a little better than they are now, and get rid of the junk one. So we already have basically what we want here, but let's link it up. I mean, it seems kind of silly to have a URL here and then not actually make it clickable. So we'll go to the profile show. So we'll just change this profile URL here to link profile.url to HTTP profile.url. And ideally this would be a separate function just so that we could do some error handling, make sure the user's not putting HTTP into their profile to begin with. But for this particular project, we're not going to worry about it. However, we do need to guard against profiles being passed in that don't have URLs, because in that case we would be linking to nil, and that just doesn't make sense. So what we'll do is we'll put a guard at the front, profile.url, and the rest of this. Okay, then we can basically do the exact same thing for Twitter. So we'll make sure that profile Twitter is defined. So that'll be our guard, and then we'll link to an @ plus the profile. This should make it very clear to people that there is an @ in it. Profile.twitter to http twitter.com/profile.twitter. YouTube channel is going to be very similar again, so YouTube channel profile.youtube and link profile.youtube, and we're just going to display the ID because there isn't really a better way to do that I can think of quickly. Profile.youtube. And while we're in here, let's add in a few more things. If the person is an admin or they're looking at their own profile, so we'll make the helper just like we did before for the user. We'll call it mine, like the profile is mine. It's going to be dependent on there being a current user and the current user having an ID that is equal to profile.userid. And we can be sure profile.userid is there because while the user is not preloaded, the ID is. User ID is just a normal field. And using that, we can go down here under the YouTube link and add another field to show the user ID if they're looking at their own profile or they're an admin. Profile.userid and close the list item. All right, let's have a look. User ID 1, excellent. All right, we should also check those links, make sure they're reasonable. So that is good, that is good, that is good. And then we're going to use this same thing here and put a guard on people even seeing the edit links, because it's kind of weird to show edit links for other people's profiles, even though you are prevented from editing them. It just doesn't quite make sense. So let's see here. The profile's index will be visible to everybody since it's already scoped to their own profiles. So that'll be outside of the scope of this. And people are just going to see their own profile path and then this divider. Let me reformat this a little bit. Column 81, that goes over. So we'll put the span on the next line and we'll pull that in there like so. And we still see everything because we are an admin and we're looking at our own. So let's log in as a new user who's not an admin. So we'll have to sign up. The name is Newton. The username is newbie. And email is new@new.new. Password new. Oh, that's not super great. So what happened? We got created successfully and then no longer had access to look at the page we were looking at. So that's an interesting question. What should we do when a user is created? Let's redirect to show their own user page. I think that makes the most sense. So user controllers over here. When we create, we'll redirect to show user. Looks like we're already doing that. Let's pull up the terminal and look at this. So the creation was okay. Then we did a get from users 3. Went to the show as expected with the right information, and then it was halted in logged in user. That is because we didn't log them in terms of what the auth controller could see. So the session is there, but we just haven't set the con assigns. So there's a really simple fix for that. Since we made an auth login and auth logout pair of functions, we can just log them in before we redirect them. So statwatch.auth.login user, and this is the whole user. That should prevent that from ever happening again. So I'm going to make a new user. Password didn't match. Well, come on. There we go. And no errors, and we do see our own user page. Back is not the best thing to put there. User show. And instead of calling on back, we're going to make that all users. And that should only be visible to an admin. Yeah, we'll fix both of those. So we're going to use the same thing we did in the profile controller. Basically, we've got this self here. So we're going to require that this is admin or self to show the edit link. Then this line with all users, that is only going to show to admins, but we will show the user their own listing of profiles. So say all profiles, And this is going to be user path con index. No, it's going to be profile path. Okay, and then this one is going to be admin only. And then we need another divider there, so divider. And actually this can all be on one line. And we'll indent this, indent this, and let's have a look. Here's the user page. Edit or see all profiles. All profiles. This user has no profiles, so it looks like that. Then if we try to look at user number 2's page, we can see the create profile is gone and the edit button is gone. That's totally reasonable. Now let's log in as an admin. All right, welcome back. And looking at our own profile, we see everything. If we look at other user profiles, we should still see everything. Very good. And I've been saying profiles, I mean users. But if we do look at another user's profiles, we still see the user ID as we should. Okay, so that's good. Next step is we want to make it so that we can restrict to admin, not just from the views, but also from within the controllers, and make it something we can just put in wherever we want, like we do with logged in user. So we'll go to the auth file for that. So here's our logged in user. We'll use basically the same strategy to do admin. So we're going to make an authenticate admin function. It's going to look a lot like logged in user. There's going to be a happy path where it just passes the con along and changes nothing. And then there's going to be a path where they're not authenticated and they're not shown the page. So we'll start by actually copying exactly this. And instead of logged in user, it's going to be called authenticate admin. And we still need to match on the con assigns, but instead of current user, we're going to be looking for an admin user. And that's all that needs to be there for the admin to be passed along. Then let's drag this down. It's too bad that's generating white space. It's a little messed up. Hit Control K, Control X to get rid of it. And this authenticate admin is going to be the not so happy path. And in this case, it didn't match the first one, therefore they must not be authenticated. So this time we're going to check the ops, which were completely ignored in logged in user. And there's one option we'll call poker face. And if that's passed in, then it will just pretend the page does not exist. So if ops poker face, we'll put status 404. And we'll render error view 404 message page not found, layout false. So that should look just like our normal 404 views, and then we'll halt. If poker face wasn't passed in, then we'll basically do the same kind of thing we did for users not being logged in on logged in user. We'll put a flash, error, you do not have access to that page. Redirect to helpers.pagepath on index and halt. Okay, so with that in place, we should be able to use Authenticate Admin any place where we've been able to use logged in user. Now I will copy this and cut that and paste it up closer to the top. I'm going to leave a init and call at the very beginning, but everything else will be alphabetical. Now let's use our new plug in the user controller. Not the user schema. So our current rules are: you have to be logged in for anything but new or create, and you have to be the correct user, i.e. the same user as the one in question, for editing, updating, and deleting. Now we'll also add in Authenticate Admin. And we will pass it poker face when action in index. So this current user is an admin, so nothing should change for this user. So we look at all profiles, fine. Look at our own user profile, or look at our own user page, all users. Render to is undefined, error view is not available. Let's include that in the auth controller. Page not found. Are we not an admin? We are an admin. That's why we see all users. Okay, so there's got to be some bug here. Oh, right, the admin user is not an object. The logged in user was an object. That was an actual user. Admin user is just Boolean. Okay, good. We see everything because we are an admin. And as you just saw, if you're not an admin, it says page not found. So our poker face true works. Let's look at our overall plan again. I think we're just about there. That's done. That's done. Okay, some kind of styling. We're not going to go too crazy on that. We'll just do a little bit here. So we're going to get rid of the Phoenix framework logo because that would be really lame to leave in an app. We'll add the Alchemist camp one and static images. Just drag in this one. So powered by transparent, and delete this. Then we'll go to the main app CSS, which is not here. This is the generated CSS. We actually have to go all the way up here to assets, not in priv, but just in assets. And there's an app CSS and there's a Phoenix CSS. And Phoenix CSS has quite a substantial line number 9. In fact, it would be really boring to scroll through that not using this mini map. And then it has, so this line 9 is basically all of Bootstrap version 3. And we're going to hit Alt-Z to display that in one single line instead of wrapping. It's a pretty convenient function to have here. And then there's some other random CSS that they use just for the splash page on a default Phoenix app. And unfortunately, if we were to make a .logo class in our app CSS, which is completely empty, it would clash with this one here. So What we're going to do is just copy all of it, or cut all of this out of the Phoenix CSS. So Phoenix CSS just has Bootstrap. I'll leave that and paste it into app CSS. And then we can start customizing it a bit. So the first thing I'll do in terms of customization is change that logo. And we have it right up here. Instead of using this phoenix.png, we'll use the logo that I just uploaded. So powered by transparent. And that's a smaller logo. So we've got to alter this. The width is going to be 100 pixels. And the height is 93. We'll leave the margin there as is. We'll keep this set of styles. Then we'll add a footer, which is just going to be a margin, basically. Margin of 10 pixels and 0. And we'll style the header nav a bit as well. We're going to add some title text at the top in the header, and in order to make it flow nicely with the logo, we'll make that display inline block. Span logo.title display inline block. And we're also going to add a style for the nav. Pixels, and this should be dot header, and then for that h1 title itself, h1.title display inline block. So by default, any h1, h2, h3, so on is going to be block display and take up the entire line. We don't want that. Inline block. And vertical align, just so that it works nicely with the images. Text bottom font size, we'll make it gigantic. Okay, marketing is fine. The header styles I did separately above, so I'll get rid of that line. And the rest may be okay. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so we've got the new logo. There is no title text, so we can't see if that's styled correctly or not. So let's add that right now. It's going to be an app.html.eex in our layouts. All right, we'll make a new span here, and this is going to contain the logo and the title. That's because they're both inline block, and we want them to stay together as much as possible. They'll split only on super narrow views. Span class equals. All right, and we've already got the logo here, and we'll just put that inside the span, and we'll close the span just so it doesn't get forgotten. Now this logo is fine, but we're going to add a link to it so that it links to Alchemist Camp. So ahref equals https alchemist.camp. And then right next to that, we'll make our h1. If we didn't have a class on it, the h1 would be a block display, and then it would take up a whole line and show up under the logo. But we want it to show up next to it, so we'll use that title class that we just set up, and it will be inline block. And it's just going to link to the base of the whole app, StatWatch. Okay, it's there. We don't really want it to be blue though. That's a little bit weird. And let's check out the styling. It is getting knocked down when it doesn't have to, so we're going to have to fix that. We made it a single class in our HTML, so we've got to do that. And then we're also going to have to add the style for the H1 title link on hover, and actually the link itself. So header h1 dot title, and we've got to include the h1 because a is an HTML element, and that has a higher precedence over classes when determining styles. Set it to 333 like the rest of the app is. And header h1 dot title dot a, and then hover attribute, text decoration none. So that should get rid of the underline. It's now black, there's no underline. It does still turn into a pointer, and we do want that because it is clickable. And yes, okay, that's what I wanted. So now the logo and the title stay together unless it's just absolutely impossible. All right, so we don't want this to be gray. We want it to be purple, and we'll put white on purple. And I consider that to be a specific attribute of this page rather than app-wide CSS. So I'm going to make that inline in the index page. Text.html.ex. There we go. We've got our big jumbotron. I'll just set the style here. Style equals background 451 C58. So that's going to be purple, and then the color of the text is going to be pure white. And we'll change the text to and actually we're not going to have get text. This is just going to be, well, we could have get text, who knows, maybe someday this will get translated. I kind of doubt it for this one. Track your side projects as they grow. And then in this lead, StatWatch.me records the popularity of your site, Twitter, and YouTube. Okay, that's looking a little bit more like the real site. This is the actual one. So add a huge sign up button right there, because if you bury it in the upper right hand corner, not that many people actually sign up. Sign up. And that'll link to user path, con, and new. And since it's a button, it's going to be post by default. We're going to change that to get. And we'll put some styling in it too. Get a primary button. And give it a margin of 10 on the top and bottom, or 10 on the left and right. And width of 150px. And then we'll make it a little bit bigger too. It seems a little bit smaller, is that right? Styles aren't quite, oh, this is at 110%. Okay, it looks the same. And then I'll bump the font size right back up just so you can see it easily. Let's make sure the sign up button actually goes to the right place. Yes, it does. Okay, that part is looking better. Lower down on the page, we've got other information, of course, because it would be silly to have every side project linked to the Phoenix resources, as much as it would be awesome if everybody used Phoenix. And we really don't need the terminal open. So in this marketing row, let's see here. Change that to supported metrics. And then these links below are each actually just going to be text. So first one is Alexa rank. Next one is Twitter followers. And then we have YouTube channel views and subscribers. We don't really need to tell them. We're also recording how many videos they themselves have put up. They'll see that detail, but it's not something that's going to motivate someone to use a tool. And details. Same deal here, just plain text. Completely free to use. Stats are logged once a day. StatWatch makes no promise of the accuracy or availability of any information. Let's make that scrolling. Make that wrap. Okay. Any information on the site. And we're going to add one more actually. So in order to remain under free API limits, and this is actually real. The actual StatWatch is limited in signups because otherwise free API limits would be hit and then it would cost money to run it. All right. That looks a lot like the real deal now. So the only thing left that's really missing from the real app is the about page. So over here is the real app. There's an about page link. If we click through, there's a whole separate page. And we're not going to go through adding all this text. I'll just copy paste that in. But we will definitely add the new page because that's more Phoenix related. And it's going to take the same stuff it always does. We're going to need a new route, and we're going to need something in a controller somewhere to handle it. And then we'll need a template for it. And if it's a new controller, which it's not, we would also need to make a new view. So we'll start with a link, and it's going to be not in this page. It's going to be in the layout. So up here, before the link to the user, we're going to have a link to about. And we'll just add one more link at the top and use the link helper. Got to have an equals here or else it won't show up. Link about, and we'll just do it to the URL itself. So now we have our about link. There's no route to handle it though, so we'll get a router error. In a router, we'll just add one more, add it with the get, and it makes perfect sense to use a page controller because it is a one-off page. And we'll call this one about, and will be /about. And now there's nothing to find in the controller, which is exactly what we would expect. So we'll go to our page controller. Nope, not in campsite, in StatWatch. Okay. All we have is index, so we'll add one more for about. No template. That's right. And we can just go right in here and create one. .html.eex. And I'm just going to paste this in since it would not really be a great use of time to type all of that out. It's pretty straightforward though, so we have simple paragraphs. There are some links in it. The interesting part is probably the video embeds. So I've made a class called video container. Inside of that, I use an iframe, and it's got a set width and height that I chose, and then the source and the link to the video, and close the iframe and the div. The reason this is interesting is because if you look at the original project or the real project, as this window resizes, the videos resize, and it can work while they're playing.
Hey YouTube,
so you can
it's
see,
Mark, and I have something new for you today.
It's actually a pretty neat trick, and it's totally CSS based. So we'll add the video container classes to our app.css. It's going to be position relative inside the container. And then a percentage padding on the bottom. .30 pixels of padding on the top, height 0, width 100%, margin 20 pixels, which I added. The rest of this I did not come up with, I found it online. Then we need another style for the video container iframe. And since the parent, the container, is position relative, this position absolute will position it off of its parent as opposed to off of the whole page. Top 0, left 0, width 100%. This part's actually pretty easy to understand. Height 100%. So it will just take up all of the space in the video container itself. All right, and then gotta save this, and now we've got a whole about page. Something's a little bit odd there though. Oh, there it is. All right, So this is all of the features that were in StatWatch when I launched it. So it's basically complete. There was one other thing that I changed though, and that was in the profiles. When someone creates a profile, a lot of people were typing in an @ in their Twitter, or they were sometimes typing in like http://twitter.com/myprofile. And so to fix that, what I did is I put one more line into the profile.ex. And that line goes right before validate required. It was ecto.changeset.updateChange. And update change takes one attribute or one field from your change set and then a function saying how that change set should be updated. In this case, the field is Twitter, and the function, we'll just do an anonymous function right here and use regex replace. And our regular expression is going to first match any amount of anything, and then there's going to be either a slash, so say they typed in twitter.com/myprofile, or it's going to match the @ sign. So they just typed @ and then their profile. And then if there's a match, we're going to replace what was in the parentheses with an empty string. So this will turn @ some profile name into some profile name. This will turn http://something/something/profile name into profile name. It's not perfect, but it'll help the vast majority of people who are inputting @ signs or inputting the whole Twitter URL or something like that. And with those last few odds and ends, this project is done. You have the entire package. You have all of statwatch.me, the actual site as it was when it was released, plus that last little bit to deal with invalid input for Twitter profiles that I release as a patch later. And of course I may be tweaking it. I probably will be tweaking it as time goes by, as long as I keep using it for my own sites. And well, honestly, why wouldn't I, since I mean, who doesn't want to keep track of the stats in their side projects? But you do have a full working site, and if you want to, you can go back to the first video in this series and clone the entire thing and then tweak it to suit your purposes, and it's a pretty nice starter project. If you found this educational or useful, or even just an ego boost watching me go through all the bug fixing, then by all means tell your friends about alchemist.camp and hit subscribe so you get the next video. Till then, code on.